decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back.
Our guest today lived through terribly abusive teenage years as the youngest of 5 siblings in what many would call a dysfunctional family. She was shuffled from house to house and school to school with little emotional support. Finally, her softball skills provided a positive identity, which led to an athletic scholarship to a Christian college. But she didn't believe in God. She had no Christian background. But she was seeking a way out of the screwed-up life she had endured and listened to the encouragement of her teammates and classmates. Slowly, she decided to follow Jesus with no turning back. Listen now as Milissa Wright, a well-known physical therapist in Blairsville, Georgia, shares how following Jesus has turned her life around completely. Well, welcome, Milissa, and thanks so much for sharing your very personal story.
My story begins when I was a child. My mother had 5 children. I was the youngest. For the first 4 years of my life, we grew up in New York. We moved to Florida when I was 4, and we just, I put a lot of my hope and confidence in my parents. Mm-hmm. My mom was raised Catholic, but she didn't have a relationship with God. Her background was mostly on rules and regulations and traditions. My dad hit a hard point in his life, and he didn't find work, and he got into a depression. And so about from that time forward, Mom and Dad always had kind of a difficult relationship. And it wasn't until I was 11 that my dad finally moved out. But even before then, he was oftentimes in his room where he was not present for us. Mom was a CNA, or she didn't work for a long time, but then she became a CNA, which then she needed to get a job, so she went into school to be an LPN. So during that time, we were kind of, raising our own selves. Like I said, I was the youngest. We were each 2 years apart.
Wow.
I have a set of twins in our family. So it's me, the twins, my brother, and my sister being the oldest. They helped to kind of raise us, and then when Dad finally moved out, he was gone from our lives quite often. We would try to be there and just get any time that we could with him. But anyway, he became a softball coach of my sister and I. Me for just a short period of time, but he was the coach for my sister. Mom had to work 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job
to help support y'all.
To help support us, yes.
How did you feel about your dad at that point?
Well, because Mom was so bitter about it, and rightfully so, he didn't treat her the way that she should have been treated. Mm-hmm. Mom told us, a little bit about what was going on, and she kind of personified like her feelings upon us. Sure. And so I built a very hard shell, and so, well, why doesn't Dad want to be a part of our lives, right, type thing. So I was like, well, fine, if you don't want to be a part of our lives, then that's the way it's going to be. So we lived in a very poverty-stricken area.
And this was in Florida?
This was in Florida. It was in Pinellas Park, Florida. So there was a lot of violence, a lot of drugs. I was probably about 11 or 12 by the time I had, dabbled in drugs. When I say drugs, it's really like marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed a lot of days of school my freshman year of high school. It was about 46 days. I just decided I didn't want to go. And we would just find ways that we could just hang out as friends. And so I ended up failing. I think I was taking 6 classes at the time. I ended up failing 5 of them.
Wow.
So.
And phys ed was the one you went to?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that was fun. But anyway, I knew that wasn't a lifestyle that I needed to pursue continually. Right. I was trying to find a way out. And so an uncle kind of stepped forward and said that he would take me in. But this relationship was not, when I say he's an uncle, he's not a blood uncle or anything like that, but he took advantage of me, and so I felt at the time that I still needed to be in this situation in order to get out of the situation I was just in. So I felt like there was no other hope. There was nothing else provided for me. And so, he provided a home, he provided clothes and whatnot, but it came at a very big expense.
For you.
But ended up moving away from, this was in Fort Myers, so we went from Pinellas Park to Fort Myers, and then stayed there for about a year, and then we moved to Sebring, Florida. So in Sebring, Florida, I was able to begin to play softball, and that was kind of the segue out of that lifestyle.
Right.
It was so...
Were you back in school now?
Yes, it was so strange how things worked because, like I said, I failed 5 of the 6 classes I was in. And then when I moved to Fort Myers, I finished out, the month or so that I had left of school.
Right.
And I started taking summer classes because I knew that I had failed those classes. And they were like, "Why are you in here?" And I was like, "Well, because I failed these classes." And they were like, "Well, no, you have an A in them." I was like, "No, like I understand what you're saying, but please double check because I know this is what happened and I don't want to get halfway through and then,
Right.
So anyway, and that's how it ended up being. I ended up getting those A's. So I took those A's from Fort Myers, and they went to Sebring, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the uncle that I was with, he was having some hard times living in Sebring, and so we ended up moving back to Clearwater, and when we moved back to Clearwater, those A's again became F's, and so I couldn't play softball.
Oh man!
And that's what I wanted to do. That's what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. So I actually transferred back to Sebring, and I stayed with.
You got your A's back?
I got my A's back. Isn't it crazy?
It's crazy. That's the way the Lord works.
So, and I was able to play softball there, and I worked day and night.
And you got out of your uncle's control by then?
Yes. He stayed there in Clearwater, and I was given just this wonderful opportunity to stay with my softball coach's dad, who was about 93 at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I was...
You were sort of safe then, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay.
And he was wonderful. I have a heart for the elderly. I really do. I've always connected well, just because I think I love to gain that, knowledge, and there's no fear of, that's just real,
Mm-hmm.
He let me stay in his home for rent-free. He paid for groceries. He did everything.
Now, you were in school and playing softball, but were you working at all?
Not much.
Okay.
The uncle that I had still helped pay here and there for different things. And in the summers, I did work. I
Yeah.
worked for a chiropractor. Yes. So
That led to a career.
it did. I took an internship at a physical therapy place in Sebring for the school year. It was called Co-op. And so, I mean, I knew long before that I wanted to do physical therapy. So it was about middle school that I,
Wow.
decided that, God had not, in hindsight, God had called me to do that.
Sure.
I wasn't saved until I was 19. But so, again, working very hard at school, at softball, it led me to a scholarship at Warner Southern College.
Oh, wow.
So I was able to get quite a bit of scholarship money for my athletic ability, but also for my academic. So I started in Sebring my sophomore year in Sebring High School at my sophomore year of high school. I was given those A's
Right.
my freshman year. But then I built upon those after that. And so I graduated with a 3.9 GPA.
Wow.
And so that helped me to get into this school.
Sure.
But Warner Southern College is a Christian college. And I wasn't interested in going because it was a Christian college. I wasn't Christian. I just wanted to play softball.
Yeah.
And
Free.
Yes, yes. So they gave me a scholarship there, and I got out of that school much more than I could ever imagine.
Mhm.
That was essentially, led me to the salvation that I have today. There was lots of people in my life who have helped to lead me in this direction. I was there for about 6 months before my eyes were open to what the Lord had for
How
me.
did that happen? You didn't have a foundation of Christianity.
No.
You had witnessed some Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
And now then you're in a Christian college, and that wasn't your doing, that was God's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened while you were there
Mm-hmm.
to get you to submit your life to Christ. And tell us about that.
It was mostly just the influence of those around me, just sharing the word, sharing their life experiences, and it was softening my hard heart toward accepting Christ.
Anything specific?
Well, I lived with a man and a woman who were very godly, and they helped kind of mentor me and teach me how they did things in their household. And then I met my husband as well in college in my freshman year. And so he was a godly man, and just the interactions kind of built one on top of another, and went to chapel. And then one time in chapel, I was just, I felt as though there was much more to life than my past.
Mhm.
And how it defined me. And so it was I was in chapel, and I just remember sitting there and just weeping and just asking the Lord to come into my heart and teach me how to live. And then this huge weight was lifted, and I didn't even know what kind of weight I was carrying. It was just like, thank you, for something that's greater than myself, something that's going to show me what my future holds and not what my past has done for me. And I'm super excited that the Lord didn't show me everything that I was doing wrong at the time, because I think that would have been a daunting task, and I probably would have felt super overwhelmed. But this newfound freedom allowed me step by step, using Holy Spirit to know what the Christian life was, and just being able to follow Holy Spirit.
Were you excited about that?
I was very excited. I think I told everybody I could possibly tell.
So you were obnoxious?
Yes. I'm still obnoxious, so.
Oh, I didn't say that.
But, he has definitely changed my life, and it has just been a remarkable journey to forgiveness for my dad, who I held such harsh feelings toward. Forgiveness for my uncle, who had taken advantage of me, and just forgiveness for just who I was.
How did you forgive that uncle?
He doesn't know the Lord, and despite the difficulty, I don't want to see him go to hell.
Of course not.
So he has no idea what he's missing. So.
Yeah. But you do. Do you have a relationship with him still?
No, I haven't talked to him since.
It's not necessary.
Mm-mm.
But he knows your beliefs.
Yes, he does.
And what about your real dad?
My real dad, he's awesome. I pray for him all the time because he's not a believer. But this past Christmas, it was so precious because we were all in Florida for Christmas. It was the first time since Mom had passed away. She passed away 5 years ago. Well, 2014. And so it was the first time we had gathered since she'd passed away.
Right.
And we were at my sister's house, and he showed up on Christmas Day.
Unexpected?
Unexpected.
Do you know why he did that?
I think his heart is becoming a little bit softer.
Whoa.
So I do, because that's not him, that's not his character. I think he's getting a little bit older and realizing that there's a little bit more to life than what he's been experiencing. His health is not what it could be. So, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to just be a part of that.
Sure.
I almost didn't go just because two small kids driving to Florida 9-10 hours. But I'm glad that I did.
Oh, sure.
So,
the Lord pushed you down there.
Yes, he did, and it was precious. So
that must have been an exciting moment when you opened it, or somebody opened the door, and there he stood.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and I told my daughter Olivia, she is quite hilarious. I was telling her that he's not a believer,
Right.
So anyway, she was like, well, I just don't understand that. Well, how can someone not believe? And so then she was like, I've got to call Grandpa. Because this after we had left and went to the hotel room. And so I was like, okay, well, let's just wait until tomorrow, hoping that she would forget, just because, he and I have had the conversation.
Sure.
But anyway, she ended up calling him, and she was like, Grandpa, do you believe in Jesus? And he's like, well, and I don't remember his answer. But she was like, well, you know that you can go to heaven if you believe in Jesus. And she was like, and we need you to be in heaven. And so she was like, so do you believe in Jesus? And so I think he finally was like, yeah, I do.
Okay.
But
but he's still a work in progress, as far as you know.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the Lord's got great plans. I keep asking him not to take his life until he's accepted Christ.
Milissa, you're very well known in Blairsville because of your career, because of your servant's heart. I mean, you even pray out loud with some of your patients, including me one time, and you're outspoken because of what the Lord's done for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine, and I'm not referring to a song now, but I can only imagine what life must be.
I can only imagine.
Well, go on.
I sing too, but it's terrible. Okay, it's all right.
I can only imagine what life must have been like for you as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And then to turn around and eventually be able to forgive some of those that treated you terribly. And then for the Lord to send you to that Christian college where you met your husband and you became a Christian yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is an amazing, amazing thing that God's done for you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do now? Do you feel like you've been called to be a physical therapist? Is that your ministry?
For right now, I think it is. God has led me to physical therapy school. I actually went to USF, University of South Florida, for a year, and it was a combined program for physical therapy and medical students. Mm-hmm. And so we were taking our physical therapy courses as well as the med student courses. So anyway, I was taking molecular medicine, and yeah, it was terrible. So I ended up, I failed it. So we had an opportunity to retake it and still be in the program. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to, so I actually quit. And I thought, well, okay, let me do something different, completely different. And the softball coach that I had, he was like, Milissa, you've got to reapply somewhere else. And so I was like, well, what if, I'm not supposed to do this? It was like the day before the deadline for University of St. Augustine. And I got my stuff together and I sent it off in the mail. I was accepted. And I knew that road is going to be tough because I'm not the smartest person in the world. And I work hard, but that's why, part of the reason why I've succeeded is because of the work ethic that I have. It's not natural intelligence.
Right.
So the schooling was tough. It was really tough. I had a teacher tell me at the University of St. Augustine that I was never going to make it, and that
don't ever say that to Milissa.
Yes. She says your attention to detail is not what it needs to be in order to be a physical therapist. So I just wept in her office, and I was like, how can this possibly be? And I was mad at the same time. I was like, so anyway, that conversation
inspired you.
It did. So I was like, okay,
that was the kick in the tail you needed.
Yes, and I did. I went back to her and I said, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for telling me exactly what I needed to hear in order to succeed. So
does she know how much you've succeeded? Have you
not other than graduating, no.
Oh, okay.
No. So I because of the amount of difficulty that I had in school, that I am able to use what I have for God. I think if it had been easier, that I could have just chalked it up to, well, I'm just that good, and I don't mean to be prideful, but in the earlier part, it's my will that kept me going, and so God's like, I'm breaking your will, and you're going to do things the way I need you to do them in order for me to be glorified in it. And so that's why it's incredibly easy for me to give him the glory during every treatment for every patient, because the moment someone says, thank you, Milissa, no, thank the Lord, because I didn't get myself through physical therapy school. So I definitely think that was something guided by God. So
this is a ministry you've been called to?
Yes, definitely.
And you know that this is what God wanted you to do for him?
Yes. And whether he wants me to do it for him forever, I don't know.
Well, he may have something else in mind. You never know.
Right.
That happens sometimes. Sometimes this could be that he's training you for something else at the same time.
So I'm taking it. My husband's wonderful. My children are wonderful to help, support, and they've just been amazing. But God, I'm trying to grow my relationship with God using Holy Spirit, because I don't want to miss out on the things that he has for my life. And whatever that may be, I want to be able to go at it without any hesitation.
Sure.
So
And that's tough to do,
it takes a lot of effort.
especially if there's a change in the course.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. And you've been through a couple changes in course.
yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Milissa, you have a wonderful, wonderful story.
Thank you.
And I know it's tough because it dredges up memories. I'm fortunate as I sit here interviewing you and hearing you share your story, because I can see the tears in your eyes. I can see the expressions on your face. I can hear in the tone of your voice some hurt and some excitement, and that's changed.
Mm-hmm.
People who listen to your story podcast, they don't get to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They can with the voice tone and that sort of thing sometimes, but I really, really appreciate you. It's a very personal story, and I really appreciate your willingness to share that personal story. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how many people you're going to affect. You don't know whether somebody's going to hear you and they've been wondering or they've been wandering or whatever, and they say, oh my gosh, what that girl's been through. Well, I haven't been through that, but boy, maybe I can take a note from her notebook and get my life squared away and begin serving the Lord.
Yeah, I think that everybody has their story, and when there's a breaking point to accept Christ, that's when that direction changes for the good. That's when our lives are more purposeful, when we can accept Christ and let Him lead our lives. Before then, and lost and without purpose.
Right.
So I'm thankful for His faithfulness and His love for me, even if I didn't even know He existed. He was cultivating, everything, or putting everything together, all the puzzle pieces.
Sure.
And at the right time.
He does that for everybody.
He does.
But some are stubborn enough so they don't stop and think about what has happened.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
and
that
how He has orchestrated things. And He has put you in the right place at the right time with the right people. And I mean, it's amazing when you look back on it. And a lot of us elderly folks don't look back on it until we're up in years. And then we hear it say, oh my gosh, everything He did train me for what I'm doing now. And I feel that same way. And Sue does too. But thank you so much, Milissa.
Thank you for having me.
Love you in the Lord.
Thank you.
And you're precious to everybody that knows you now.
Thank you.
And some don't know what you've been through, but many do.
By the grace of God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have one final question for you, and I think I know the answer already. But
No, the answer's no.
I don't need a treatment right now. Okay. That's not what I was going to ask.
Being silly.
Yeah, I don't. But what I want to ask you is that do you believe that how God orchestrated all these events in your life to get you squared away and get your life squared away so that you're serving Him and serving people, do you believe that's a God thing?
That is a God thing. That is a God thing. He orchestrates everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The cross before me, the world behind me, no turning